There are several culprits. There's Biden and what he's done, and it's not irrelevant, but it's not.
And what is that?
Well, that is all the spending, basically.
Yeah, the relief,
plan, the $1,400 checks, the $2 trillion that you and I have talked about a lot that's on the sidelines. Half of that's government money that we gave people to spend, and now they're trying to spend it, so you get inflation.
Yeah.
And as we talked about the other day, left to its own devices, the administration would have proposed another $4 trillion.
Again, there's Obama's auto czar from back in the day, Steve Ratner, and there's a private equity guy, very, very wealthy individual who's made a lot of money in the markets, who is saying, yeah, it turns out that spending too much money as a government, the government spending too much money caused inflation. Welcome back to Clay and Buck, but the economy is not looking like it's going to get better anytime soon. The market is in a rough spot right now. 401ks getting crushed all over the place. And let's understand that we were told, I mean, the promise that Biden made to get people to vote for him was, sure, normalcy and unity. Those were lies. Right now you have a White House that's advocating for some of the most radical, particularly radical social policies we've ever seen any White House standing behind. But beyond that, the radical spending, I mean, Obama, when you remember, we had a full-on financial housing meltdown, and the big fight was over $900 billion and change for the stimulus package. That was the discussion. And now Biden comes in and spends $2 trillion like it's nothing. I mean, that's double what that was. And it was already added on top of the trillions in spending that were done in the real depths of the pandemic in 2020 and into 2021. So they've got problems in this White House they don't know how to solve. And the place where I think people are seeing the price, I just spoke to someone yesterday, Clay, one of the guys who works, in the hair and makeup department at the First where I do TV. And I said, what is it costing you? Because he drives in and out of the city every day and, drives sort of standard sedan. What's it cost? He says it costs $100 to fill up his gas tank. He's spending now this is New York City, but $100 every time. When you're working hard coming in and out of your job and you're spending $100 on gas, people recognize that because that's running up their bills in ways that they can start to run into credit card debt. They can have real problems.
There are lots of stickers, and some of our people out there all over the country, I'm sure, have seen this with Joe Biden saying, "I did that," and it's just him pointing right where the gas tax, basically, which feels like a tax, constantly is rolling, right? And there are lots of gas stations that I've been to of late, Buck, where I feel like they have capped $100 in gas, many of their computers, because historically you wouldn't be able to spend $100 on gas. And the concern would be, hey, maybe the pump is still rolling, because the first few times I had it stop automatically at $100, I was like, wow, you know how when you sometimes end on a round number, you're like, oh, that's kind of crazy. I've had 4 different times where I stopped exactly on $100 and my gas tank is not full, but it's because they have those fail-safe, those safeguards, which they thought, oh, we'll set it at 100 because there'd never be a time where you're going to have to spend over $100 to fill up your tank. And there are a lot of us out there that are having to spend more than that. And I know that feeling where you're driving around and you're watching those big numbers up on the board and you're like, hey, if I go to this part of town, I can pay 20 cents less a gallon, but I really need gas right now. Do I want to pull in? And you're starting to do the calculus and the math in your head of what you're going to save. And look at the Krogers and the Costcos and the Sam's Clubs of the world where people are lining up. Buck, some of these lines now to get gas, it feels like what I've heard the 1970s were like, when the lines roll all the way out into the street because people are trying to save money by going to some of these gas wholesalers just to save a little bit of money. It is an epidemic, and as we say on this show regularly, you can't overlook it. It is the number one issue. Everybody wants to talk about abortion. Everybody wants to talk about Jan 6th. Everybody wants to talk about every other issue. The one that resonates is when you can't even fill your gas tank up for $100, you're furious every time you have to fill up.